sitting in my chair late at night, watching crime unfold.
Wendy, can you hear me?
From the darkest corner, stories unfold. True crime jewels, she's brash and she is bold. On the YouTube screen, we're digging deep into the mysteries that never sleep.
I don't think you guys can hear me. That is so bizarre. Oh, Woman's Warrior, you hear me? I wonder why Wendy can't hear me. Okay, can you guys hear me? That is crazy. So you did not hear me at all when I was previously on. I have no idea what happened, Sandy Hill. Very, very strange. The last 10 minutes. Huh. I don't know. See, so let me see if this. Hold on just a second. Let me make sure you're still going to be able to hear me. A boy in Tennessee won't be left behind. From the coldest cases to the ones that shine, true crime's calling and we're taking the time. So grab a seat, don't miss a beat. This true crime jewels got what you need. Okay, can you hear me now? In the world of crime, we discuss the truth. My mic went scratchy and then went out. On this true crime journey, join Jewels of Thought and our gemstone family. He's getting on that. Can you still hear me? If you can. All right. Wow, that is. I hate that happened, y'all. Yeah, well. Uh-oh, my music is still playing. Hold on. Well, I'm sitting in a chair. Yeah. So I get that what you're saying about, and usually, to be fair, Zelda does have my phone number. And usually she will call me and give me a heads up if there's something going on. But obviously she's not on right now. We were caught in emoji purgatory. That's so funny, DB. Yeah, maybe I'll go and get a Mint phone, like a pay by the month. I don't want to use my real phone, just because I'm kind of, private, I guess. But I guess I need to do that because that's very unfortunate that happened. And I apologize. It's very, very upsetting. I know, Vicky. If it was the last 10 minutes, it was. So, wildfire in Cleveland moving to Montgomery County. Is that right, Sandy? Wow, that's out where my brother is. How bad is it? He would be calling me, though, if it was something big. Let me look, make sure he's okay. Wildfires everywhere. All right. San Jacinto County Fire Department, 200 acres burning. Yeah, I know where that place is. There's a big west of Beach Creek. Man, I gotta hold on. Y'all hang on. I've got a niece is right there where it's happening. Hold on.
Just a minute, y'all. So sorry, I'm messaging my fire west of Beach Creek. Uh, okay. All right. Thank you for letting me know about the fire. Appreciate that. All right. I messaged my brother and niece to tell them. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get back over here. I want to take this down. I am so sorry that happened, you guys. So yeah, I'll wait and see if they get back in touch with me, but we'll see what happens. Okay. So this I'm so frustrated this happened because it's hard to pick up in the middle of what we were talking about. So I'm going to kind of go through really fast the beginning part to get back to the timeline issues. But the drop that we got today was the defense's perspective of the evidence. What we previously had been looking at over the past week or so was the timeline given to us by the prosecution, correct? And so it was really, context is incredibly important. And so what the defense provided to us today really, really changed the conversation a lot. Now, I heard somebody, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, but somebody came into the chat. Oh, I think it was Catherine. Somebody came into the chat and said, who lied or what did they lie about? Well, that's a little bit difficult to say exactly who did it, but it could have been Payne. It could have been the girls. It could have been an orchestrated statement, an inaccurate statement that was agreed upon by the parents of Dylan and Bethany, and the cops, law enforcement. So if you look at, and this is for Catherine because she asked the question, if you look at the statement that the prosecution has reduced the communications I'm talking about the communications of Dylan and Bethany. If you look at how they represented it, they called the early morning hours excited utterances and present sense impression. Now they did that for legal reason. They did that because of the hearsay or the rules on the exceptions to hearsay, right? But I think they're minimizing those excited utterances, if you will. I think they're taking real substance, true evidence, and they're reducing its value by saying, oh, it's excited utterances and present sense impression. No, it's lies. or the prosecution and law enforcement lied. So I'm not saying that they did the lying. It could have been Officer Payne. And we did actually watch his hearing and listen to his answers. And many of us that were originally guilters, we walked away from that hearing going, I do not feel confident in what I heard Brett Payne answer to. And I'm being really careful here because I don't want to call him a liar. But what do you call it when he says, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who has that. I don't know. He sounded like he was a suspect on the witness stand. Not, please don't go say that I said Brett Payne did this. He did not. I'm saying that his constant statement, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, was not reminiscent of someone who's leading an investigation. it was more reminiscent of the kind of thing that you hear from suspects. So I'm bothered by them now that we have the defense's point of view and we see exactly how active these two girls were on their telephones and their social media before the 911 call. I'm pretty uncomfortable. And I'm pretty uncomfortable that it would be reduced to, oh, this is exception to hearsay. These are excited utterances. No, they're outright evidence, in my opinion. There's some real not so much Bethany, but Dylan. Well, Dylan did some highly questionable things that night, and I know that there are a lot of you guys that feel very protective of Dylan and Bethany, that they survived a massacre. I agree. You have to protect people, and there are people that don't get killed in massacres, but she did some very curious things that we don't have answers to. One of the things that she did that is incredibly interesting was this. The Uber driver that took Kaylee and Maddie, that picked them up the grub truck and brought them up to their house, where they proceeded to get out. And they know this because they saw it on the security camera. They got out of the car. They went in the house. They took Murphy outside to go to the bathroom. They know all of this happened because it's on the security camera. Why do we have Dylan messaging their driver saying, "Are you driving yet?" That is very odd. There's no explanation for it. There's no discussion about it. We don't even know where this chick was all night long. But she knew the Uber driver that was carrying Kaylee and Maddie. Why? So how can they call 8 hours later and say she fainted, not mention the blood and the gore, to have the police prepare all a bunch of BS, and they were not sleeping? Obviously, they were on their phone. Right, Verica. I don't know. That I am an originally, I'm a guilter. I believe they got the right guy. I said 4 murders, lots of evidence at that crime scene. No way this dude gets in his car, drives to his apartment, and he didn't bring any evidence with him. I don't believe that. The cops have the evidence. They don't have to tell us everything they have until they get to trial. I believed that. I don't believe that anymore. I feel really uncomfortable with Brett Payne's testimony in that hearing. That was my first moment that I said, wait a minute. This is very uncomfortable. I don't actually really have too much trouble with the DNA questions. I have a lot of trouble with the car, the year of the car, and the manipulations that happened there. I mean, they're effectively trying to take a square peg and get it to fit into a round hole. And now, after prosecution releases what they told us was the 911 call, it was not. It was a little 30-second snippet, or like 3 minutes, when the whole recording itself is over 4 minutes. What did they cut out? So when we got these text messages released by the prosecution, we believed we knew what was going on, right? But we didn't know there was a phone call. We didn't know these two girls talked to each other. Now, we did surmise that. I think we did speculate to that because of the comments like, well, Xana was wearing all black. Like, as if Dylan had talked to Bethany and said, oh my God, I just saw somebody dressed all in black at my up here at the house. And Bethany's like, oh, well, maybe it was Anna, because Anna was dressed in all black. So we sort of put two and two together and said they must have had a conversation, not text message, maybe a phone call, where they're kind of referring back to it in these texts, like the ski mask comment. It seemed to be coming on the heels of something else, right? But nevertheless, the prosecution puts it out. We think we were given the information. Now the defense comes along and releases the information, and we're like, holy hell, what? They're taking photographs? They're on Snapchat. They're on Instagram. What the hell? So it's very, very strange. Now, Verika. So Verika's making comment on these. Was it a police officer? Maybe it was an investigator that came by. Was it 3 days or 6 days after the murders that they came to the house, and in Dylan's bedroom there were all these pictures of eyes with heavy eyebrows, right? Well, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe she's drawing these pictures because she's trying to remember the guy that she saw. Maybe she drew all those pictures after the fact. But a lot of people felt like she has just a weird fascination drawing people's eyes and eyebrows, and that's why she noticed the intruder's eyebrows, because she was already really fixated on that body feature anyway. I feel a little bit like that sounds more like a trauma reaction to me, that she, in the days after the murders, that she's laying around with this very vague, misty memory in her mind. And so she's trying to recall it. And so she's drawing what she could see of the guy, which, according to her, was the eyebrows and the eyes. So it could be something like that. So I wouldn't get real bogged down thinking that she was already like focused on bushy eyebrows and lied about the intruder's eyebrows. To me, it seems more like a panic like a anxiety, like a reaction formation that she was traumatized by that night and was just trying to remember what she saw and was doing it by drawing, basically. All right. Oh, that was so out of normal practice, Women's Warrior. Yeah, crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, so the drawings of the bushy eyebrows were like all over her bedroom. But remember this, she wouldn't have been in the 1122 King Road bedroom. It would have been her bedroom at home, right? They weren't allowed to go back in the King Road house. So she would have been at her mom and dad, or at her mom's house, I guess. And that's why I was thinking maybe this was really her trying to draw a picture of the person she saw. So I'm not too concerned or weirded out about that. I do think it's really strange, and I will be very interested to hear what is presented about this in the trial. But I don't think it necessarily suggests any lies or anything like that. But the text messaging, the things that went on between 4 a.m. and noon are shockingly bad. This isn't a little hiccup. This is shockingly bad. And it's bad enough that I would not be surprised, not one bit, if the prosecution moved to drop the charges. and the reason I would say that would be just like in the case of Barry Morphew, drop the charges so you don't end up with a double jeopardy problem in case they end up with better evidence, then they come back and recharge him. So we'll see how it all plays out. But anyway, let me get back on to the information that we got today that I think is super disappointing. And the reason that I think it is super disappointing is because I feel like the prosecution wasn't honest. I feel like they misled us a bit, right? So the original text messages that we got were March the 6th, 2025, and they were predicated on the prosecution's timeline, the story that the prosecution is wanting to present. And in their presentation, they've got Dylan and Bethany's phone activity starting at 4:19 and going all the way up to the moment where 911 is called at 11:58 a.m. That's 2 minutes before noon. Okay. Now notice the 4:19 a.m. because that becomes important, and the 4:34, 4:37 becomes important. Let me go. I'm going to skip all this because we already did this, I believe. Now, we saw Kaylee and Maddie at the corner club all night until they finally got in their, walked over to the grub truck, got their Uber car, and disappeared around the corner of the grub truck. And then Kaylee's sister said that they could see on the security camera when the car pulled up, they went in, they let Murphy outside to go to the bathroom. They could see all that, right? So they got a really perfect timeline for Maddie and Kaylee. I would suspect they've got that same perfect timeline for Ethan and Xana as well, because they had to come home. The camera would have seen them. The only ones that we don't have any information about arriving home is who? Dylan and Bethany. That ought to start making you feel uncomfortable that every time there's missing or curious information, it's not about Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana. It's weird information about Dylan and Bethany. So 1:45, Ethan and Xana return home. We got a good timeline on them. And then about 11 minutes later, Kaylee and Maddie arrive. And we don't get any information about when Dylan and Bethany arrive home or even where they are. So they come home at 1:56. And 30 minutes later, the girls begin to call Jack DeCour. Now, I'm a little weirded out by this, people. One of the reasons I'm weirded out is because there's so many phone calls in such a short period of time, and they abruptly stop. And you say, but why? They're young girls. It's an ex-boyfriend. They're probably just being silly and having fun. And come on, Jack, come over and see us. We don't want to go to sleep yet. Or can we come to your house? Right? Just normal college stuff. The problem with it that bothers me, they had just spent all night with Jack DeCour at the corner club. We saw the security pictures. So why are they leave him to go and get food at Grub Truck, and then they get home? Why? You imagine they get home, they let Murphy out to go to the bathroom. They probably chit-chatted with Xana and Ethan. They probably heard about the fight, the argument, and everything. And then they said, okay, well, we're sleepy. We're going to go to bed. So they head upstairs. And then they're like, oh, man, we should call Jack. We should get him to come over. right? So about 30 minutes. It makes sense, right? So they start calling him. Kaylee calls Jack 6 times between 2:26 and 2:44. Does that seem excessive at all? It's 19 minutes. That is a phone call every 3 minutes. It's very strange. It's very strange. And then at 2:44, Maddie uses Kaylee's phone to call Jack 3 times. Actually, I think that's backwards. I think that's supposed to be Kaylee used Maddie's phone. And I do think that's speculation. Maybe it was Maddie calling. So at 2:44, they switch over and they stop using Kaylee's phone to call. And now it's Maddie calling. And she calls 3 times in about 8 minutes. Again, that's 2 or 3 minutes apart between calls. The last call, 7 phone calls, happens at 2:52. 10 phone calls, 26 minutes. That is a little over 2 minutes per call, using 2 different phones. I'm asking you guys, you tell me your thoughts. Does this seem like good, normal, just fun? Or does this seem upset? Oh, yeah, but we weren't talking about the knife. I mean, there is a sense of desperation, right? Or to be fair, maybe anger, right? Maybe there's frustration or irritation. But if it was, then why is Maddie getting in on the gig? Why is Maddie calling? It just seemed like to me that, I mean, if you're 2 girls and something makes you nervous, for example, think about this. What if you're up on the very top floor, right? The 2 girls are on the very top floor. What if they're sitting there and suddenly they hear a bunch of yelling downstairs? What if they hear yelling and they're like, "What is that? Oh my God." And maybe one of them looks outside and says, "Oh my God, there's people out there." You might call Jack and say, "I'm feeling a little nervous. I don't want to go out there. Do you think you could come over and help us?" Or, "Why is Adam downstairs screaming and yelling?" Do you see what I mean? It could have been that there was something happening that maybe they knew the people that were involved, and so they didn't feel like it rose to the level that they should call the police, but it was enough that maybe they thought, "Oh, we need Jack to come help us." Something like that, maybe onward and outward. So it's strange. Possibly whatever Maddie had told Adam. There's another really, really good point. We all heard that conversation. What did you tell Adam? She said, "I told him everything." And correct me here on this, y'all. Wasn't he Jack DeCour's roommate? He lived right around the corner, correct? So the timeline is curious, right? Already the timeline gets curious. We hadn't even gotten into the new information, but I thought the phone calls for Maddie and Kaylee, I don't think we should disregard them. The last one was at 2:52 in the morning, right? The reason that I think we should not disregard them is because Koberger's cell phone, he goes off service at 2:47. It's 5 minutes before this last phone call that Kaylee makes. 5 minutes before the last phone call, he is circling, or what we're being told is Koberger's car is circles 3 times, right? 3:29 a.m. a white Hyundai Elantra passes 1122 King Road 3 times. So this is all real close. And then 4 a.m., Xana gets a DoorDash order, and Dylan Mortensen hears noises. Now then, this is my first thing that I feel really uncomfortable about. Why is Dylan Mortensen contacting the Uber driver that is bringing Kaylee and Maddie home? She says, "Are you driving yet?" We don't even really know where she is. That doesn't mean that, I'm sure the cops know where they were. I'm sure the trial, it will all come out. But according to what we have now, they didn't give us that information. But because they're considered victims, right? So 4 a.m., Xana gets a DoorDash order. The fourth time for the car to come around is only 4 minutes later. So Dylan gets in touch and says, "Are you driving yet?" They arrive home. They let the dogs out. They chat for a few minutes. They go upstairs, start these frantic telephone calls to Jack DeCoeur. And then Xana just says, "Hey, I think I'll get I think I'm hungry. I think I'll order DoorDash." There's a disconnect. There's missing information. Something was happening in that house that was out of the ordinary. And I am not altogether convinced that Xana's the one that made the DoorDash order. I think maybe somebody else did. I also don't think that she was on TikTok at what was it? 17 minutes after 4. I don't think it was her. So 4:04, the Elantra makes the 4th time around the house. And then here we start. They're saying the estimated times of the murder was from 4 a.m. to 4:25, according to the prosecution. But we've got Xana getting a DoorDash order at 4. How can you be being murdered at 4 and getting your your DoorDash order? How can that be? How can you do that? So I don't really know why they're saying the murder started at 4 a.m., but then Xana got a DoorDash order at that time. It's just too weird. And then I don't want to do that. And then 4:12, Xana, I said 4:17. It's 4:12. Xana's active on TikTok. So 4 o'clock she gets her food. 4:12 she's on TikTok. 4:17, now we're hearing supposedly the aftermath or the beginnings of the murders, one or the other, right? There's noises, whimpers, voices, loud thuds. The barking is lasting for 17 minutes or something. At 4:20, the Elantra speeds away. So 4:04, the Elantra is near the house. 4:20, it speeds away. So they got 16 minutes, correct? They got 16 minutes that they could do this. And at 4:12, which is that takes away out of your 16 minutes. At 4:12, she's active on TikTok, so she's aware. she's awake, is what they're telling us. It's just the timeline's not good. It's a bad one. All right. Then 4:20, car leaves, speeds away, and then 28 minutes later, Kohberger's back in business. So in no way do I believe that this new information from the defense, in no way do I think that it exonerates Kohberger. I don't. But I do think that it absolutely opens up the door that other people had to have known about the murders. The timing is wrong. We've got people running around in the middle of the night, appearing to be naked. We got a girl jumping in a Jeep at 4:20, leaving the area. I said when I did the videos a long time ago about that Jeep and the person that got in the Jeep, I said then, I wondered if that wasn't Dylan or Bethany leaving. And I thought, but I kept thinking, but why? Why would just one of them leave, right? If you see a man in your house, you hear what sounds like, helter skelter happening in your house, why would you run out of the door and leave your other roommate there and run and go jump in the Jeep and drive away? Not returning until the next day or once the sun came up. Why would you do that? And then I watched Jay Embry, and Jay Embry gave me my answer. So thank you, Jay. Jay believes that for some reason, Bethany was already at the hotel. He's very specific, the Best Western Hotel. And the reason that he believes it's the Best Western Hotel is because he can see a car leaving at 4:20, which was also when the Jeep was leaving. And he's got a camera that he can see this Jeep leave and make this, winding road through the neighborhood and end up at the Best Western. And you remember those text messages. I'm scared. And Bethany said, come to my room. Run. That always bothered me. I thought, why would you tell somebody, run, come to my room, run? Why wouldn't you just say, come down here with me? Jay Embry thinks that it was Bethany at her hotel room, and she was saying, come to the hotel room with me. I know you're scared. So this is very strange, y'all. And it opens up a lot more speculation about who got into that Jeep or that truck in the middle of all this mayhem and drove away. And looks like they drove right straight to the Best Western. Then you see a naked guy coming past the dumpster. I mean, it is just horrifying. So Kohberger's phone pings at 4:48. I mean, like, he's going to have Ian is going to have a real hard time defending Kohberger because his phone goes offline exactly during the time of the murders. And does that happen any other night? I mean, if it does, she's going to have to show that in court. She's going to have to say, oh, look, he did it on Monday night. He did it on Tuesday night, last Thursday night, on May the 5th, his phone checked out, same time frame. So that's also going to be a problem for the defense. Then we get today we ended up getting the defense's timeline, which changes things quite a bit. And I'll try to quickly go through it since we've already been through it once before. Defense disputes Koger's presence at the house, blah, blah, blah. Dylan says there's a masked guy. She cannot identify him. I've already said the drawings of the bushy eyebrows did not necessarily happen before the murders. To me, it sounds like a stress reaction, or what we call a reaction formation, where she was traumatized. She has a murky memory of seeing him, and now she's obsessively drawing to try to make him seem real. She has like this compulsion of intrusive thought in her mind of what he looked like, what that moment was like, and she's compelled to draw to try to make a picture of what the intruder looked like. So I don't think that that's nefarious that she had these photos in her house. To me, again, it sounds more like a reaction formation than just a strange obsession with eyebrows. I also am not concerned about the male DNA in the stairwell or the glove outside. Now, let me say this. The glove outside, that was actually found by Chris McDonough of the interview room. And he's on camera saying, hey, dude, there's a glove over here by the trash can. Do I think that a murderer would throw his gloves into the trash can? No, I don't think so. It looked, I saw it in the camera. It looked like just a heavy ski glove, right? A padded down-filled ski glove is what it looked like. It could have belonged to any kid walking to school or walking home from school. Not too concerned about that. As far as the male DNA in the stairwell, let me ask you this. This is a popular group of kids. They're all they're all Greek. So lots of partying, lots of socialization. We saw on law enforcement body cam, they had any manner of parties going on all the time. They had people coming in and out of that house all the time. I would be of the belief that there was male DNA everywhere in that house, everywhere. And if what they're telling us is they only found male DNA in one part of the house, I'm going to call bullshit and say, who the hell wiped up all the DNA? That's weird. But maybe they were able to match it up to the fraternity boys. I don't know. But that the DNA, not weird that the male DNA is there. It should be there because there's lots of kids. But is that the only place they found it? And if that's the case, then that would be weird to me. Okay, so at 4:19, Bethany calls Dylan. They actually have a phone call together. We didn't know that from the prosecution's information, but we did surmise that because of the comments that they're making. They're saying, oh, like a ski mask almost. But in the text messages, they never describe a ski mask. So you're left going, well, they must have been talking before. Same thing when they say, oh, well, Xana was dressed all in black. Like maybe Dylan said, oh my God, I just saw a dude in our house. He's dressed all in black and had a ski mask on. And then Bethany at her hotel room at the Best Western is going, oh, weird. Well, I remember Xana was dressed all in black tonight. Maybe it was her. No, it couldn't have been her. There was a ski mask. You see what I mean? It's like there was an original phone conversation, and then the text messaging followed after that, built on what was said during the phone conversation. I don't understand this conversation if Bethany is downstairs. Why wouldn't they just, for example, I mean, sincerely, okay, let's be honest here. If you're at your house Let's say your bedroom is upstairs at your house and you hear a ruckus. You hear a brouhaha taking place. First thing you're going to do is what? Stick your head out the door. You're going to be like, what the hell? And then you're going to like tiptoe, looking carefully. And you might even say, hello? Like you might actually call out to whoever's in your house because you're just going to expect it to be someone you know, right? Dylan's stories are all over the place, y'all. And I know that a lot of people feel very protective of these two girls, and they reiterate these are victims. I'm agreeing with you on that. They've been treated as victims by law enforcement. Dylan's got some trouble here. One of the things that is troubling is why she's messaging the Uber driver, are you traveling yet? Why would you care, Dylan? Why is this important if Kaylee and Maddie are home? Where are they supposed to be traveling to? Are they picking someone up you know? So that was troubling. The next thing that is troubling is this phone conversation that she's having with Bethany and this weird, come to my room, run. Okay. Come to my room, run. Let's say Jay Embry is completely wrong and Dylan is downstairs in her room and she's just saying, you're frightened, you're scared, run down here. At least we'll be together. We won't be alone, right? What she said, it's better than being alone. Why then are they going to then just spend time on Snapchat and Instagram? If this was such a horrifying, terrifying thing, there's a man in a ski mask in your house. There is noise loud enough to be picked up on security camera that belongs to a completely different house. It's not even the outside security on your own house. It's someone else's outside security. And it's on the Linda Lane. The noise of the attack is on the Linda Lane footage as well. So I don't understand how you are going to listen to helter skelter in your house happening around you so loud that a dog barking is picked up on another camera, the words being spoken, murmuring, thuds, all being picked up on these. You can hear in the Linda Lane footage, you can hear Ethan. You can hear this very loud yelling. And 2 minutes later, you're starting now these messages and these phone calls, and you're so freaked out by the noises that you say, come to my room, run. And then when you get there, you get on Snapchat and Instagram. You don't call the damn police. You don't call one of the boys that you're friends with. The timeline is terrible now that we see this. 417. Think about this, y'all, in real time. 417. A nearby security, and this is minutes after the Uber driver, DoorDash has dropped food off. Xana on TikTok. And now we've got a loud thud, a whimper, like crying, voices, angry voices, a dog barking for 17 minutes. And 2 minutes later, 2 minutes, Bethany calls Dylan and says, oh my God, what's going on up there, Dylan? And she says, I don't know. I mean, I looked out there and there's somebody all in black with a ski mask, but I don't know. In the meanwhile, back at the ranch, Lassie is upstairs in Kaylee's room, barking and barking and barking. Timothy has fallen in the well. In 2 minutes? Come on, y'all. Come on. I think Jay Embry is right. I don't think Bethany was there. I think it was Dylan that was there. And I think that the come to my room, run down here if you need to. And she goes out and gets in that damn Jeep and drives to that hotel. The reason I think this is this is speculation, y'all. All of this speculation. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. The way you read it, it doesn't make sense. It's not human nature. What's been described in this is not how people react to threat of bodily harm. The inside of that house, the odor of death, the odor of fear would have been suffocating. It would have been suffocating. Those four kids in terror, you wouldn't have been able to stand being in the house. So what's been given to us goes against human nature. This is not how we react to trauma. And don't forget, you have Dylan Mortensen in her original tale. She says, oh, I was in the frozen shock phase. Oh, there's nothing frozen about Dylan. This girl is not frozen at all. Jay Embry's idea, it makes a little bit more sense, and it accounts for the weird Jeep ride at 4 a.m. and the naked man. All that lines out. The time is right. And here's why I think it makes more sense. What Jay Embry is saying makes more sense because Dylan would have gotten to the hotel room, right? And then she would have felt relief. And I'm talking about physical relief. Her brain would have been flooded with chemicals that relaxed her after this horrifying experience that she had just gone through. So 422 to 424, they're having this text exchange. Bethany says, come to my room, run. Dylan makes one message to Kaylee. What's going on? Doesn't get anything. And then we've got Bethany active at 4:34, right? Bethany's active at 4:34. Hold on just a minute. Let me get down here. Dylan is not active again on her phone till 10 a.m. Think about that. $4:37. She and Dylan have had this conversation. She says to Dylan, "You come to me, run," and then we don't hear anything else from Dylan. She's finished now. Bethany, though, is immediately after telling Dylan to come to her. Bethany's she's still on her phone. 4:37. She's accessing her Instagram, looking at things, sending messages and such, but not Dylan, just Bethany. Why? Because Dylan was scared shitless. She ran out of that house. That's why the door was standing open in the morning. She ran over and got into her Jeep, and she drove straight to that hotel where Bethany was. And when she got there, her brain said, oh my God, we are in safety now. thank God we're okay. They probably talked for a few minutes. She probably cried, and then she probably went to sleep. At 8 o'clock, Dylan finally starts getting on Instagram. I said 10 a while ago. I meant 8. She's finally now active. She's had about 3 hours sleep after this terrible trauma that she's been through. But look at Bethany. So Bethany accessed her Instagram for a little while. She had some stuff going on. Looks like she too fell asleep. They slept only 2-3 hours. What's the first thing that Bethany does when she wakes up? She's calling her dad. She called him at 7:30. She called him at 8. She calls a different number at 8, probably another number she could have reached her dad at, right? Maybe an office number or something. Called that at 8 o'clock. 8:01, she calls her landline for her house. And then she calls her mom at 8:02. 7:30, 8, 8:01, 8:02. And then 7 minutes after that last phone call, Dad finally calls. Dylan, all these phone calls are happening. And then Dylan gets on Instagram 8:05. Was she looking for information? Was she looking to see if any of their friends were talking about, oh my God, there was a murder on King Road? Is that what she was looking for? They stay on Instagram and Snapchat and Yik Yak. And look, 8:41 to 8:42, Bethany is taking photographs. She just decides that that's a great time to spend 2 minutes taking photographs. Why? Well, she takes phone calls. She takes photographs to 8:42, and then her mom calls about 15 or 20 minutes later. Were the photographs to verify that they were not at the King Road Ranch or King Road house? Was this an alibi? Were the parents freaked out and saying, get a photograph, show where you are, make sure there's a date and time on it? Were the parents trying to help these two girls? 9:04, mom texts Bethany. 10 o'clock. Okay, so 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, Dylan is on her Instagram. 10, you're not going to believe this, y'all. 10 to 10:01, Snapchat incoming and outgoing messages. To 10:03, Instagram. 10:04, Indeed. You're on Indeed? You're looking for a job, Dylan? Did you just forget about what happened at your house to your 4 friends? Then from 10:04 to 10:23, there are Snapchat again, incoming and outgoing. And then we've got Dylan messaging MM. Is that Maddie Mogan? Or could that be Matt, one of the boys that lives at the Whites, the apartment buildings by the Linda Lane Road? 10:24 to 10:25, she's back on Instagram. To 10:45, Snapchat. And then here's another weird one. 11:21, JM texts BF. Now the question I have, is JM her boyfriend? Or could this be Jeff Mogan, Maddie's father? Maybe she sent a message to him on Instagram, have you talked to Maddie today? Maybe something like that. 10:56 to 11:29, they're still Snapchatting and Instagramming. Now, 8 minutes after JM texts Bethany, Dylan texts Kaylee. And then Dylan ends up on Yik Yak, which somewhere my brain remembers Brian Koberger had something related to Yik Yak. I don't remember where I came across that. And it's driving me crazy. So if somebody knows where that information is, please help me find it because I remember that. But anyway, Dylan is on Yik Yak. Then she's on TikTok, 11:35, 11:36, 11:37, more Snapchats. And then finally, from 11:39 to 11:40, Dylan and her father are texting. BF, so JM texted BF. Now BF is calling JM. And then 6 hours after the murders, 10:31 a.m., this photograph was taken of Brian Koberger. It's a selfie taken in his bathroom mirror. There is, number one, no shower curtain. And I guess that's supposed to explain why he had no shower curtain. But he looks very thin and way pale. Look at his lips. Look at his lips. Super, super pale. And then when you scroll on down, he's given us the thumbs up. And I think I see damage. I think this looks bruised here. This looks bruised right here, even all the way to there. And then it looks like bruising around this knuckle. And I kind of think his finger looks really swollen. And then you have the abrasions here. Now, one of the reasons why I chose to show this is the abrasion problem, right? And please pay attention. You see how white his skin looks? You see how pale his lips are? He doesn't look like that. In this picture, he almost looks like he's like gonna dress up as Dracula, right? He looks kind of like vampirish. His hair is super almost black looking, but then his skin is so white. He didn't look like that in real life. Like even when they did the perp walk, his skin tone looked a normal skin tone. So I thought, why is it so like washed out? Well, because when you normalize the color on the picture, then you get that. Look at his thumb and how badly it is damaged. Is that why? Oh yeah, gone. He looks just terrible. Absolutely, Miss Sharon. He looks terrible. And why take a selfie in the damn bathroom? And who buttons their shirt all the way up to the neck? That is so bizarre as well. So the shower curtain is at the very edge of the picture. I totally agree with you. If you look all the way to the right, it's possible that that's the edge of the shower curtain, right? Because it's not even. It's not a straight line as if it were tile. But Links, is that who said that? I am Lux. Okay. Lux. Anne is going to try to argue that this demonstrates that he did not have a shower curtain and that was normal, right? But I don't think so. I'm more in agreement with you. I do think this might be a shower curtain. I'm not saying for sure it is, but it might be. I do think it is very odd that he took this photograph 6 hours after the murders, giving a thumbs up, and he lightens the picture to the point that he looks like a vampire and you can't really see the damage on his thumb. But when it's a normal color, there's absolute damage to his thumb, no question about it. See what I mean? So it's a terrible, tragic, horrible. Truth seeker thinks it's the shower wall. Yeah, I'm not arguing either direction. I don't know. K. Smith says he's going to church and that the picture hurts the state. All right. I mean, you know what, K. Smith? Here's what I would say. This is 6 hours, because the phone, it's a selfie, right? So he takes this picture 6 hours after the murder. He looks well rested. He doesn't have deep shadows under his eyes. I'm creeped out by how washed out he is. He's very, very pale. The hair's way too dark. You would have to be a complete and total psychopath to be able to go murder 4 people and within a few hours come, get your shower, get all cleaned up, smile, and look like this. Right? You'd have to have a extreme disconnect from your limbic system, which would make him a primary psychopath. So here's a question. Why did he take the picture? Have we been given that explanation and I just don't know what it is? Hey, Alpha and Omega, how are you? One person being able to murder 4 alone is so hard. Well, I used to think that, Alpha Omega, but I'm different on that now. There's other ways it could have. For example, let's say that the fight was all about Ethan and what happened at the party, because they had an argument. They had a big fight beforehand. So let's say it was about that. I'm just using this as an example. I'm not saying this is what happened. Please don't misunderstand what I'm doing. An example of how one person could do all 4 of this. So let's say these kids are mad at Ethan. And so they come and Xana is downstairs opening the door to get her DoorDash. The angry boys, they come in the second floor, the sliding glass door. They go straight to the back where Ethan is in the bedroom and he's passed out drunk. And so they're in the process of killing Ethan. Xana walks in, they grab her, they get into a big fight with her, and, just out of self-preservation, they end up killing her. And then as the guy is trying to leave, then Kaylee has come down the stairs. She sees him. She's, somebody here. She turns around to run upstairs to run away. He knows, oh my God, that's Kaylee. She knows me. She saw me. So he runs after Kaylee because he can't let her go tell people that he's the one that killed Ethan and Xana. And so Kaylee runs and jumps in the bed where Maddie is, and they're both up in the bed like, no, we won't tell anybody, leave us alone. And now he just has to do them in. That would get your 4 people in one house, but it wouldn't be quiet. It would be loud. It would be chaotic. And there's Dylan and Bethany. There was a fight at the party at the sorority, at the fraternity house. Yeah, sure. Sketty Nona, you and I are exactly on the same page. I think we've got lots of real facts that Brian is likely not like us, that he doesn't experience the same kind of emotions that we do. He's got a lot of neurological, psychological aberrations. Yeah, he probably would have the ability to do something very exciting and not feel excited. I mean, have you ever seen his face move? It never moves, does it? So, no, I think depending on how affected he is by his condition, his psychiatric condition, here's another issue. So he developed a problem with heroin early, which is strange in and of itself. He's been most social when he was using drugs. He moved off to a place that he did not know anyone, supposedly. So he gets more isolated and more alone and more under stress. He's having a hard time at his job. He's not maneuvering the social relationships very well, to the point that he is getting written up at work, and his stress gets worse and worse and worse. What if he went looking for drugs? What if he went looking for drugs? What if he was using and something just went off the rails and went crazy and he is the killer? There's a million different stories that you could write to make them fit this timeline and fit this array of evidence. But here's the problem. You and I are sitting on a damn YouTube channel, and we have exactly zero authority or control. No one cares what our opinion is. But if you are Brett Payne, you're the lead investigator, you cannot just take evidence and then just write a fictitious tale about what happened. You cannot do that. And unfortunately, it looks like they did do that. And it looks like part of that process of doing that, they protected Dylan and Bethany. And I think protecting Dylan and Bethany would have been very natural to Brett Payne. He's a young guy. He's military or ex-military. And it was probably just natural for him to believe that they could not possibly have been involved. You see what I mean? So, and I'm not saying they were involved. I've made the case many times in this conversation that much of what was revealed by the defense today really would explain Dylan's behavior. Her being terrified, running away and going to a safe haven. The girls being in a location away from the crime scene where they felt detached from it, so they didn't feel quite that urgency. There is no way, y'all, believe this. There is no way they were in that house. They were not in that house. From 4:30 in the morning until noon, they were not in that house. You could hear them on that 911 call when they discovered Kaylee. You could hear the screams. You can hear them saying, no, she's brown. You could hear them. They didn't see him. I am convinced of that. I think Jay Embry is right that Bethany was not at that house. And when she said, come to my room, I think it was come to my hotel room. And I think that that's exactly what Dylan did. She ran out of that house, down out that front door, straight up to that Jeep. She got in that Jeep. She drove straight to Dylan's room and felt instant relief and safety and just calmed. They are witnesses. Yes, they are, little Miss Sharon. Well, how much? I don't think Bethany is a witness. You know what I mean? I don't think Bethany is a witness because when they did the conversation about, oh, let's see, they did the conversation about hearsay, right? During the hearing, they were having the conversation about hearsay, and they said that Bethany's description of like the naked man who was putting the clothes in the bag, that she was actually repeating what Dylan had told her. She was repeating the story that Dylan told. So I don't think Bethany's a witness. Dylan is definitely a witness. Why would There's a lot of reasons that Bethany could be at a hotel room. It was a parents' weekend in the Washington college. So maybe they'd had a party. Maybe she had a family member there. Maybe she was at the hotel room with her boyfriend. I don't know. A lot of reasons. Hey, Marlena, how are you? 8 hours to get back to Boise, and his dad is a meth fellow. Who? What you talking about, Design? Maybe a boyfriend? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe Bethany was with her boyfriend. Sure. Can we not be like 1950s housewives for a minute? These are young women. They've graduated high school. They're old enough to drive. Yes, they're probably kissing boys and doing the fun things that college students do. And no, it wouldn't be unusual and they wouldn't be Jezebels if they, were spending the night with a boyfriend. No, it's natural. It's actually age appropriate behavior. Okay. Let's just be honest. I mean, how many 18, 19, and 20-year-olds are getting married so they can have sex? None. Hell, our 30-year-olds are not even getting married anymore, y'all. People aren't getting married until they're nearly too old to have kids. So, yeah, they're having sex at college. Can we just not make that a thing? It has nothing to do with anything. Oh, thank you so much, Catherine Joy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sammy's girl. Thank you, my friend. I hope you are doing well. Yeah, okay, so Dylan's boyfriend, and I used to know his name and now I can't remember it. Hold on. It's a cute name. Her boyfriend has a cute name. What's his name? I can't remember. And he's smaller than her, isn't he? And he's much shorter than her. I don't have any problem with being with a boyfriend, but I want to know why she wasn't in her room at the house that night. I don't know. Maybe the boyfriend didn't want to be around other girls, right? Maybe they wanted privacy. That would not be unusual at all. I wish I could remember her boyfriend's name. Could have been on TikTok to be checking on roommates. Yeah, totally agree, Salty Sweet Tea. In fact, I thought about that. Maybe that's how they were sending their messages, right? Instead of texting or calling. Maybe they were just kind of going to where they're all in one group together. What is her boyfriend's name? Damn it. Now I'm going to have to go back and look through the earlier. Man, he's got a really cute name though. He's got a he looks Quinn. That's it. K Smith, thank you so much for being my external hard drive. See, I told you. Yeah, cute name, right? Quinn. No, I think Jake is Maddie's boyfriend. But yeah, the picture's curious, isn't it? He's a curious dude. Not only does he have all these weird ailments like visual snow, and all that, he's got all this stuff, but he's also looks peculiar. And, maybe that adds to the fear factor. Maybe that, but how awful would it be that he looks frightening? And then it turns out that he is a monster. It's terrible. I just feel so bad. I don't spend much time on this case because when I get into the details of it, to empathize with what they went through, the fear, it's too much. It's way too much. It was a terrifying thing for them to live through and finally die, and it was terrible. One of the reasons that it is imperative that law enforcement take seriously Dylan Mortensen is because Ethan and Xana, one of them, or perhaps both of them, they were alive for a long time. They fully bled out. And they could have been potentially, possibly, maybe not. Maybe they could have been saved if an ambulance had been called. So, and at the same time that I say that, I'm not judging Dylan harshly at all. I'm actually making a case for her. She's a young girl. And if you're terrified and someone says, run away, run to where I'm at, and your friend's in a hotel room just down the road, are you going to take a deep breath and take off running to your car? Or are you going to stay in the house where you've just listened to your friends be slaughtered? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to absolutely run. And most of us would run. Right? Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Correct? And call 911, Vicky. Yeah, I'm not, but I also know people, and I understand how anxiety and anxious distress and survival, I understand all of that neurologically. And I really believe that if she had listened to them being murdered, had been seen by the murderer, and then she listens to Bethany and she takes off running, gets in her Jeep, drives to the hotel. When she walked in that hotel room, I bet she just about fainted. I bet her whole body went limp, and I bet she cried, and then I bet she fell asleep for a couple hours. That makes a hell of a lot more sense to me than what they're telling us. Those girls did not stay in that house with 4 dead bodies. You ask any law enforcement person, they wouldn't do it because the odors in the house, the chemical reactions in the house would have been overwhelming. I have a question for you guys. Have you ever put shrimp shells in your trash can and thought, oh, I'll take it out in a minute? And then you forget about it. And then 5, 6, 7 hours later, you're like, damn, where'd that smell come from? That's just shrimp. No. It didn't happen that way. Those girls did not stay in that house for 8 hours with 4 dead bodies in rigor mortis. No. No. Absolutely not. Didn't happen. And you know what? The defense is going to have their own pathologist up on the witness stand, and they're going to say it would have been impossible to breathe in that house. And not only, listen, not only were they supposedly in the house, they were on Snapchat and Instagram and Yik Yak. They were talking to their moms and dads. They were taking photographs. No. No. I'm telling you, no. Didn't happen. Could not happen. It could not happen. You would have had the pheromones, the chemical reactions of the actual battle, the panic and the fear. You would have been able to smell and feel that. The iron of the blood, you would have been able to smell and feel that. The evacuation of the body, you would have been able to smell that. And then as the chemical reactions of the body decaying, as that started happening, the body emits a lot of gas, right? There's a lot of different types of gas. And 8 hours, the gas would have been, nope, didn't happen. They were not in that house, y'all. I'm absolutely 100% convinced that they left the house. Be real. They were gone out of that house. They were not in that house. They live at the house. Yes. They live at the house. I think Bethany was like down at the hotel. Like I said, maybe she had been with her boyfriend. Maybe they were having a party. Maybe her parents were in the next room and they were all together as family. For some reason, she was staying at the hotel that night. Maybe she and her boyfriend just wanted some privacy. And when she said, "Come to my room, run," I think that's exactly what Dylan did. She ran out, she got in the Jeep, and she went straight around down to the Best Western that you can see on the camera. You can see the car leave Kings Road and drive all the way through the neighborhood and end up at the Best Western parking lot. And if that happened, if that's true, then when Dylan got into that room with Bethany, she would have collapsed. Her brain would have said, "No more, Dylan out," and that would have been it. She'd have cried in like to get the anxious distress out. There would have been crying. There'd have been a breakdown, and then she would have gone to sleep. That's how it would happen. So there'd been no 911 call, not because she was a coward, not because she didn't care, but because her brain was just trying to maneuver this unbelievable trauma that she had just been through. It's my opinion. Thank you, Catherine Joy. Thank you so much for joining my membership. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Just so you know, I have covered all of the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell stuff. And so we're getting ready for her next trial. This one is for the murder of her husband, Charles Vallow. So we're going to be doing that too. But all right. If they knew there was a problem, then ask for a welfare check. Well, Truth Seeker, sure. I'm not saying you're wrong. Yes, that's exactly the right thing to do. But you are discounting something, Truth Seeker. You're completely ignoring the fact that this young girl just went through a life or death situation that would be like being in Afghanistan. She was at the house. Not only did she hear the horrific trauma of 4 kids being slaughtered, the dog is barking, there's things bumping and breaking around, kids screaming and yelling and crying. Not only did she hear it, but she looked out her door and the guy looked at her, and she believed she was in imminent death, fear of death. He went ahead and walked on, and now she's freaking out, and she's talking to Bethany like, holy shit, what's going on? Bethany's not in the house. Dylan's alone now. Dylan's realizing I'm in this house where there's death, and this murderer was here. And Dylan says, come to my room, run. You bet your ass I'm running. I am running. I am getting as far away from that house as I can possibly get. And the adrenaline that would have been coursing through her veins would have been like, a double pop of methamphetamine. She'd have been shaken and filled with just, and I believe that's who we see getting into that Jeep on the camera, getting into that Jeep, driving away and going straight to the Best Western to her friend to safety. And when she got there, Mother Nature took over and her body collapsed. That's what happened. There's no way you can have any sympathy for these girls. Oh. Primarily, Tanel, I have sympathy for Ethan and Xana. The truth is that they did live for a while because they bled out. There was enough blood in Xana's room that it penetrated the walls and went outside. When the heart stops beating, that's when you stop bleeding. Now there's a little bit of gravity that can be involved, so you may leak a little bit of blood, but once heart stops, you're pretty much finished bleeding. And they bled bad. They were alive for a long time. They may not have been awake. They probably weren't conscious. But here's the problem. If Dylan had chosen, or Bethany, if somebody had called the police, they could have had an ambulance there in minutes. Moscow's a small place, right? And then you have the possibility that Xana or Ethan or both could have survived this thing, and their lives would have been forever changed. It would have been a nightmare. But maybe they survived. I don't think the same was true from what I understand. I think Kaylee and Maddie were, I think they probably instantly died just because of the way their wounds have been described. But it doesn't sound like that with either Xana or Ethan. So that's my primary sympathy. Tanel is with Ethan and Xana, and I do have so much sympathy for Dylan, but I sure wish that she could have done different. I wish she could have responded differently. Maybe not her responded differently. I wish Bethany really, because Bethany didn't live through what Dylan did. Bethany wasn't in that fight or flight, the real fight or flight. Bethany could have called the cops, but maybe she thought she was going to get someone in trouble, or I don't know. They're young kids. They're all drinking. I don't know. I don't want to cast judgment on them, And I don't know how that helps. The best you can hope for is to try to find some understanding. So maybe in the future, people their age react differently in a similar type situation. Just like we used to have a lot of trouble with kids dying of alcohol poisoning. I'm telling you, they used to find kids dead all over, just like out in the backyard, right? They drink too much, they have a big party. All the friends are too afraid to call for help because they don't want to get in trouble by their parents and all this. And so nobody would ever call. Well, then there was this big campaign, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. They had a lot of like television commercials, and then we started going and talking to the fraternities and the sororities, and explaining to them what alcohol poisoning was, and you have so much time to get help and it will kill you and blah blah blah. And now we get drunk kids coming into the emergency room all the time. Thank goodness, right? So kids are definitely they're more confident for getting help with drug overdoses and alcohol abuse. But you don't ever have quadruple murders, do you? That there's probably not going to be another one for quite some time. But in any dangerous situation, to just call and to just call and say, I think there's a problem at my roommate's house. Could you drive over there and check, please? These girls may not have even known that they could do that. I mean, we know because we're old people, or I'm an old person. But yeah, I wish it had been different. And as far as who lied, why did they do it? It probably protection. Like I said, because Brett Payne is a young man, and I think he probably would feel protective over these two girls. And I think he genuinely believes that they did not do anything at all. They had nothing to do with what happened to the four. And so they tried to come up with a story that people would not want them held responsible. I think it was natural to want to protect them. Carol loves embroidery. How are you? Yes, if they called 911 at 4:20, maybe someone could have been. I totally believe that, Tanel. Yes. My friend got alcohol poisoning 3 times. The skin was so cold, I called the ambulance. Thank you, Scotty Too Hottie, for calling for help. We should not wait. It's better to call and be wrong than to not call and be wrong. Payne thinks, have you read the PCA? The whole thing is conjecture. Well, I'm trying to be gracious to Nell. Trying to be gracious, okay? Good deal, Carol. Good. Glad to hear that. A weird thing is, Dylan heard Kaylee say, someone's here, and heard Xana crying just minutes before. So how could she possibly not call 911 for 8 hours? It is inconceivable, Design Rhythm. I know. I'm trying to make some sense of the nonsensical. It was chaotic. It was like what do they call it? The fog of war, wasn't it? It was like the fog of war. The whole thing was a mess. And then look at what a mess this was. Look at this. This is a mess. Now you're looking at this picture and you're going, well, what do you mean it's a mess? He's all clean. His hair's nice. He's wearing a brand new white shirt and he's giving us a thumbs up. That's what I mean. It's a mess. They give us this story of this real life horror movie that Dylan and Bethany supposedly stay in the house for 8 hours after this unfolds. And the guy that did it is taking photographs at 10:30 in the morning with a white shirt on. It's the weirdest crap I've ever seen. The story, when I say that, I mean the story. This prosecution. Do we really believe this prosecution can do this? I don't know. And it's disgusting. Everybody keeps saying that is the shower curtain. You know what? It's a shower curtain for sure, but it's a new one. You know how I know it's a new one? You can see the folds in it. Look. Right there. And down here. And down here. Why did he have to get a new one? Is that why he stopped at the store? And see, if you look up here at the top, up here, you can even see the hardware. Ah! I can't believe I did that. Shit. Damn it. And I don't know where my... There we go. See the folds on it? That's a new shower curtain. Look at his thumb. He's the guy. He did it. He totally did it. But I definitely think the prosecution is going to have some trouble. Maybe because his dad was... Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe because his dad was coming, it's easier just to buy a new one than to clean the old one. Design. Not going to say it. Been there, done that. I've been there. I know what you're talking about. AT stated her team knows he's innocent. How many defense attorneys do that? I know, Truth Seeker. Yes. No, and tell me, Truth Seeker, have you seen an attorney fight that hard to protect their client? How long has it been since you've seen that? She definitely seems to think that he is absolutely innocent. BK wasn't what is I think you're saying BK wasn't at 1122. Well, you know what, Tanel, that's one of the things that I think prosecution's going to have a hard time with is the car. I think they're going to have a hard time because they were a little shady about how they ultimately determined that that was his car. They said, oh, expand it to the 2016 model. Well, hell, they had to go backwards, not forwards. Yeah, they're going to have trouble. This is a mess. This is a mess of a case. Cy Ray will show how much they lied about his phone location, too. Well, and to be fair, you know, Anne can request geofencing information, right, after the fact, as long as they give a time and a location of the supposed crime. She can request that information. He clearly didn't leave his phone at the house. He clearly had it with him. He just turned it off. However, it's damn inconvenient when he turned it off and when he turned back on. Thank you, Justice Jane. He was in that area, Design Rhythm, and let me say this. He definitely was in the neighborhood a lot, but can you prove that he wasn't visiting a friend? Maybe the woman who was the other PhD student that he shared an office with, maybe she lived over there and he was driving her and taking her home to her apartment. I can come up with 10 million reasons why he would be in that location. And Tanel, that's what the expert witnesses are, right? Expert witnesses are, we look at the data, we make our determinations, we testify according to what we think is going on, and then the other side puts their expert witness up to do the same, and then it's a he said, she said. The jury has to decide which one of the expert witnesses they're going to believe. You know how eerie that is, got change? He probably, whomever did it, parked on Queen Road and then was over there by Jack DeCour's house, right? And came in through the backyards. It's such a chilling thought. The state never used cast timing data to show where BK's phone was in the cell tower range. State says the data doesn't exist. I know, Tanel. I know. That's one of the things that made my jaw hit the ground when I was listening to Payne testify. He just kept saying, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I was like, holy shit, you're the one in charge of the investigation. What do you mean you don't know? Goodness gracious. Oh, they got a mess. This is going to be a mess. And the people that I feel sorry for are the families because they deserve justice. And if BK is not the guy, then justice is not jailing him if he didn't do it. That's not justice. Yeah, this investigation is a mess. That is for certain. If you read the PCA, they say utilizes the same tower as 1122, which applies to half of Moscow. There are only 2 towers. Yeah, but they can get geofencing data. That's cellular data. She can request geofence. It's a dumpster fire. It is. And it doesn't matter if you're of the belief, if you're, let me say it in the right parlance. It doesn't matter if you're a guilter or if you're a pro-burger. The reality is that the investigation is a mess, and that's bad. It's bad for both sides. No matter what side you're on, you've got to have the best investigation so you can make your case effectively. And because the investigation is so botched, that's going to be really hard for both sides to do. Oh, wow. He could be at his apartment and use that same tower. Damn. I don't think it was. Okay, so I bet you that Design probably knows this. And Nancy Drew may know this too. Okay, so it was not that BK looked into Elliot Rodger. Was it that there was wasn't there a Reddit, wasn't there a Reddit user that was using the name Elliot Rodger and everybody thought that it was BK? Am I remembering that wrong? Absolutely, Sketty Nona. Where there's drugs and fighting, there's gonna be a problem. Get out. Yep. Yeah, it was something like that. I wish I could remember. Now that you brought that up, it was something like that. Elliot even looked like BK, which is weird. Is that what it was? That the account was called Elliot Rodger, and everybody thought maybe it was BK that had done it. I don't remember let me see if I can find that. Elliot Rodger Coburger. Okay, here it is, y'all. Law enforcement authorities claim to have discovered a connection between Brian Koberger and Elliot Rodgers through a specific page in Elliot Rodgers' manifesto. They underline a line on page 118 that indicates Elliot's plan to take time to plan and prepare. While it remains unclear whether this connection has any significance, it raises questions about the possible influences on Koberger's mindset. And that's where all of the discussion started about him being incel, right? Yeah, good memory. I had forgotten about this. As the investigation continued, it became important that he meticulously examined the details, each step as he planned it. The tie-in to Elliot Rodgers' manifesto brings to light potential motivations and influences. It's crucial to handle these connections with caution and await further information and evidence. The Isla Vista killings shocked the nation in 2014. Elliot Rodgers, a disturbed 22-year-old, carried out a series of misogynistic terror attacks near the campus of the University of California, killed 6 people, ultimately took his own life. Incidents sent shockwaves through the community and brought issues of misogyny and mental health to the forefront in the killings of the 4 students. Interesting. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me about that. That is very interesting. A terrible tragedy. You know what, Tanel? I thought that, and sometimes still do think that. I know that it would seem that Kaylee and Maddie got the worst of it. And they will tell you that stabbings or choking, that those are usually done by people that have a lot of emotion, that there's usually a personal connection there, or it's a serial killer kind of situation. I don't know. And I am quite surprised about Murphy. I don't understand why the dog didn't. Why did the dog stay in the bedroom? The door was open. I don't know. It's weird. Unless he just was so terrified by what happened that he was hiding, under the bed, maybe. You might want to look into Fabio Simontelli's murder. He was a celebrity. Is he Fabio? I remember when that happened. Yes, her ex is a redhead C-star. He was the guy in at the corner club sitting on the bar stool talking to him. Yeah, I think a lot of people blamed Quinn, because he's kind of a bad boy, right? He's kind of in that lifestyle, and that doesn't mean he's capable of killing 4 people. That there's really nothing that would connect him that I've heard of. I think people just picked him because he's kind of like a delinquent kind of kid. No, I mean, they had some real possibilities. The ex-boyfriend was a very, very real possibility. And Koberger, maybe he's a curious fellow. And I'm going to tell you another one too. Brett Kopacka. Okay. There was a search warrant on December the 14th where they actually went into his apartment, ransacked the place, left a copy of the search warrant right there in plain sight. No, nobody was there. And they were looking for what? A K-bar knife and the sheath. That's what they were looking for in the search warrant on December the 14th. Not December the 19th. This was well before December 20th. So on the 14th, they had the search warrant and they left the copy. And guess what happened on December the 15th? Brett Kopacka lost his mind and was killed by the cops. That is absolutely true. And that was when Koberger and his dad left town. Absolute truth. Look at Kay Smith. Right? Yeah. Now, how in the world, let me ask y'all this question. How in the world are you going to prosecute Koberger and you're just going to completely ignore the question, why the hell is local law enforcement serving a search warrant on Brett Kopacka the day before he is killed by the police? Why are they looking for a K-bar knife for this dude? Why isn't that a part of this? No, they can't set an innocent person up. They can't. They just got to own it. If you killed the dude, you jumped the gun, and he was the dude, then you just got to say Brett Kopacka is the one that killed those 4 kids. Why are you going through all this trouble to set another dude up? And thank you, design. Damn, judge, right there in the middle of the courtroom, he said Kopacka's name in a Koberger hearing. Dirty. It's dirty. This is a dirty, bad investigation. It's not good. And they were both from Pennsylvania. And Brian Kohberger stopped at the same apartment complex that Kopacka lived in for 9 minutes that morning. It's a bad investigation. Einan is a freaky dude. Yeah. And he was at the grub truck that night with a woman. He also had drug problems. Idaho does have a lot of drug trouble, though. Yeah, Brett Kopacka, that's a weird one for sure. And do y'all remember too? Remember in the months before this happened, there were several instances of some guy with a knife, scaring people at the campus. Y'all remember that? It happened several different times. It's just hard to know. Sweet little Idaho. That's right. Sea Star. Yep. But here's the problem, Design. Depending on the experiences that some of the veterans have when they're in in war, depending on what they did, trauma does bad things to people. And if they end up in a real trigger, maybe he thought he was fighting for his life. Maybe he was triggered and he thought he was back in Afghanistan. It's hard. I don't know. They did not want Brett Kopacka in any way to be talked about in relation to Kohberger. Now, maybe they thought that the two did it together. I don't know. It's a dirty case. When you think back that you met him. Who did Scotty Too Hottie meet? I missed that. Oh, I met Sam Little. Met Sam Little as a kid at a restaurant. It was found out years later. Wow. That's chilling. He lived on my parents' property before he was run off. He was a drifter. He used to work at Disney in Orlando. When you think back. Kopacka got the short end all the way around. He definitely, they have some, there's some body camera footage of him. He doesn't sound unnerved. He sounds like a normal guy. He sounds like a really nice guy. He has talked, if I remember correctly, he does talk about his anxiety a little bit, but he got scared. That I think when he came in and he saw that they were looking for his K-bar, I think it scared him, and he was back under threat of bodily harm, and he acted accordingly. I'm talking about according to what he had experienced in Afghanistan. They shouldn't have killed him. That was the wrong thing to do. Oh yeah, that's the second part of it, right, K. Smith? What if you, the investigation is such a mess, and then you want to give him the death penalty? Sure, scary, scary, scary situation. Anyway, I think this picture was a weird thing to have happen. I mean, how many of you guys just stand in front of your mirror at 10 o'clock in the morning and take a selfie? What? Why would you be taking a selfie in the bathroom at 10 in the morning? It's very strange. That's right, Nancy. Totally agree. All right, y'all. I have got to go to sleep. Unless y'all want me to fall asleep while I'm online snoring. Then everybody's gonna be accusing me of being on drugs. Usually drug related make people do crazy things. We don't know. We don't even know that Koberger was even back on drugs. He's mighty thin. I'll say that. I mean, that's kind of suspect, right? When people get really, really thin, don't we kind of think there's probably some drug use involved? So I don't know, but he may have been doing great. He did. I did see somebody the other night, kind of saying that he did not get fired, that he did not lose his assistantship, that he wasn't having trouble. That's not true. He did have trouble. He was on a rehabilitation plan, and you can lose your assistantship and still be able to go to school. And these people were, maybe it was JLR now that I think about it. But anyway, they were saying that because he lost his assistantship, that meant he got kicked out of his program. No, hell no, it doesn't mean that. Those are two different things. You can definitely lose your assistantship and you remain a student. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, Carol. Yeah, it's just, I'm over all the drama. I am, look, I got to take this down so you can see it. I wonder why you can't see that. That's crazy. I'm telling you, they have got a problem with their StreamYards. They did something to it that is not working. I am drama weary, you guys. Do not bring those drama people over here. No, no, no. I can't. You know, every now and then something will pop off in the drama community that's kind of amusing or interesting. This is not. This is just boring. I am so, there's not, oh, I had to go in search of new communities. I had to go find new communities because I was so sick of all the arguing and carrying on. If you read the PCA, they say it utilizes, oh, somehow I rolled back, didn't I? Yeah, I know, True Seeker. Take it with a grain of salt. Though I did rather enjoy listening to Bobby's interviews. That was JLR that did Bobby's interview. It is the no drama zone. It's so boring. It's so, you know what, True Seeker? My ears literally get weary. Like when I'm listening to all that, it's just like, ugh, no, stop. You guys don't even know what you're arguing about, and you don't even know what the damn prize is. Just stop. Let's talk about something interesting. So I guess he had certain images of prostitutes that enraged him and brought out his anger for whatever reason. Are you talking about Sam Little? In the heat of the summer, 9 days. Main target. Yeah, y'all are still talking about Sam Little. It's scary. Do you want to know something, Truth Seeker? I even hate that it's called Krama. Even that makes me mad. Bye, got change. It's good to see you. Thank you for coming in. Okay, thank you for the live. Good night, Design Rhythm. And look, I hope you guys will hit the thumbs up and subscribe. And I appreciate you hanging out and chatting and talking with me. I love it so much when we get people in the conversation that both sides of the argument are represented. I think it makes for a lot better conversation. And sometimes, it causes you to rethink your position. And, so I appreciate that. So Tanel and Design, I hope you guys will come back. It was nice having y'all. Appreciate it. Yep. Let's see. I was talking about a murder at my family's business. Thank you, Sketty Nona. We still got to do our members live. It was nice, True Seeker. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you for being here, C-Star. It was really, really good. Please, let's do the YouTube thing. If you don't mind hitting the thumbs up, I would appreciate it. Of course, I would just absolutely be, very, very grateful if you wanted to subscribe. And yeah, I hope you guys have a very good night's sleep and nobody can accuse you of doing drugs.
Well, I'm sitting in my chair late at night, watching crime unfold under the pale moonlight. From the darkest corner, stories unfold. True crime jewels, she's brash and she is bold. On the YouTube screen, we're digging deep into the mysteries that never sleep. From missing kids in Tennessee to angry husbands named buried. True crime's calling, and we're taking the time. So grab a seat, don't miss a beat. This True Crime Jewels got what you need. From missing people to twisted minds, we're unraveling secrets old Barry tried to hide. Every clue, every twist and turn. In the world of crime, there's always more to learn. On the YouTube screen, we're digging deep into the mysteries that never sleep. From Christopher's anger to Stephen Fisher's lies. The truth is calling, and justice won't be denied. So grab a seat, don't miss a beat. True Crime Jewels on the YouTube streets. Lights are low, suspense is high. We're chasing truth, we spot every lie. Step into the darkness, hold on tight. Two flashlights out there in the dead of night. On the YouTube screen, we're digging deep. Barry Morphew's case is hot. A boy in Tennessee won't be left behind. From the coldest cases to the ones that shine. True crime's calling, and we're taking the time. So grab a seat, don't miss a beat. This True Crime Jewels got what you need. We're always watching Barry and waiting for the truth. In the world of crime, we discuss the proof. So hit that play and join the True Crime journey with jewels of thought and her gemstone family.